Welcome into our Week 5 matchup between the New York Krooks and the Seattle Marills. Of course, New York coming in undefeated, second in the league due to point differential with 43 points. Seattle coming in off of a bye week, picked up their first one the last time they played, and sitting with 20 points heading into this matchup. So, for New York, they're deciding to run a little bit different of a team compared to their usual starts, and Seattle running with a little bit more of a different team compared to usual. They're gonna send out a Whimsicott for Alligator duo, and of course for the New York Krooks, they're gonna send out a Glamora Whimsicott duo. So we've got a Mirror Whimsicott. Of course, both of these Pokemon on the field for Alligator and Glamora can Mega Evolve. Will they decide to do so is the question here. But for Alligator, going in with a Mega Evolution right here, right away. Whimsicott going in with a Tailwind. Gonna try to make its team just a little bit faster. Whimsicott going for a taunt onto the Glamora. Glamora going for a Sludge Bomb onto the Whimsicott. So a first early point for the New York Krooks here. And an Ice Punch coming out. Knocks Whimsicott down to 20% of its health and gets the freeze off. So unfortunate that their Whimsicott goes down, but they are able to get the freeze on the Whimsicott. Mimikyu coming out for the Seattle Marills. Tailwind will still have 3 turns after this. So a lucky draw of the freeze on to the Whimsicott. But New York able to pick up the first point of this best of 3 here between New York and Seattle. Knocking out the opposing Whimsicott. New York gonna knock out the Whimsicott. They're gonna send out Gyarados instead. So that Intimidate is gonna knock down the attacks by 1. Sludge Bomb coming out to the Mimikyu will knock down its Disguise. And just take a little bit of damage, knocking it down to 87% of its health. Phantom Force coming in, and the Mimikyu is going to vanish. For Alligator coming in with another Ice Punch. Not able to get the freeze there, and of course leftovers towards Mimikyu to restore a little bit of that health. It's Glamora, a little bit of a threat that has to be taken care of swiftly and carefully. New York deciding to withdraw their Whimsicott, and due to that frozen status, Glamora coming out with a Sludge Bomb, knocking for Alligator down to 43% and gets the poison. Gyarados coming in with a Crunch, gonna knock it down to 21%. Mimikyu coming in with a Phantom Force, knocks it down to 28% of its health. A critical hit here, but unfortunately those toxic debris are going to fall for the next Pokemon coming in. For Alligator coming in with a Rock Slide, Glamora is going to avoid the attack. Gyarados will take a hit though, knocking it down to 51%. Mimikyu restoring its health with some leftovers back to 100% of its health. For Alligator, going to be down to 8%, and Glamora will shake off the taunt here. All right. So a Toxic Spikes +1 is on the field. Tailwind is still up for a single turn. Glamora coming in with a Sludge Bomb knocks Mimikyu down to 28% of its health. Gyarados coming in with a Waterfall to try to knock out this Mimikyu right away. So another point to the New York Krooks here. And a Rock Slide coming out is gonna knock down Gyarados and Glamora down to 19 and 8% of health respectively, but of course that Toxic Debris ability and the Feraligatr is gonna go down due to poison. So Seattle down to its last Pokemon that it brought due into this game, and it will be a Garchomp, but due to that poison, and at +2 of the toxic debris. It will hurt pretty bad for Seattle's end. How can Seattle at least try to pick up a couple points here is the question at hand. They got the lucky freeze. They're going to withdraw the Gyarados and resend out the Whimsicott. Spiky Shield coming out for the Glimmora. Garchomp is going to go for an Earthquake. Will not hit the Glimmora, but is going to hit this Whimsicott. And if all goes well, it should knock it out. So a point to the Seattle Marills here. Not done just yet. But that poison is going to chip away at damage, or at the Garchomp's health for Seattle turn by turn. So you're running on a clock. Of course, this Gyarados will come out. Intimidate will kick in, knocking Gyarados's, the Garchomp's attack by 1. 19%, 8% for this Glimmora and Gyarados. How can the Garchomp knock it out and maybe give Seattle 2 more points on the board? Of course, points probably some of the most important. It's not going to affect the Gyarados. It is going to hit this Glimmora though, and it's good enough to not get out. So another point to the Seattle Marills here. Gyarados going for a super effective Ice Fang is gonna leave it down to 9%. That Rough Skin ability not enough to knock out the Gyarados, and that poison is going to knock out the Garchomp, unfortunately. So a match win here for the New York Krooks here in our best of 3. Welcome back into the Victory Road League Week 5 between the New York Krooks and the Seattle Marills. Seattle deciding to bring in its second team, which features that Mega Frostlass. And of course, New York deciding to bring in the same team. Of course, the Lucky Freeze. Seattle still was able to pick up 2 points in that first match, but can they extend this to a 3-game set between Seattle and New York? New York looking to get the sweep to continue their undefeated stretch here to start the season. What does Seattle decide to bring for this New York team, who is on a hot streak, one of 2 undefeated teams here in the Victory Road League? Tinkaton and Frostlass coming out for Seattle's end. Lucario and Whimsicott coming out for New York's end. So you gotta assume the Tailwind from the Whimsicott will kick in, and maybe possibly Mega Lucario, as well as Mega Frostlass for Seattle's end. The Tinkaton in question here, what does it decide to use and do here? It is still somewhat effective here. Maybe not towards that Lucario as much, but definitely towards this Whimsicott. Both trainers, both teams deciding what to do here on this first turn, which most people may not realize first turns can be more pivotal than not. The Whimsicott will be withdrawn for New York's end. They're going to go ahead and send out Gyarados. Intimidate going to come out. Tinkaton will not have its attack lowered, but will hit that Frostlass. The Frostlass coming out and is going to Mega Evolve right here, right away. So a bold choice for Seattle to come out and try to get this match swung into their favor. Frostlass will now set up the snow. That Lucario, as expected, coming in and is going to Mega Evolve right here, right away. Frostlass coming in with a Blizzard onto the Gyarados, and Lucario does really decent damage due to that snow warning being up. And it freezes the Lucario. 2 freezes in 2 sets. And it freezes the Gyarados. Folks, we have a double freeze here. Tinkaton with a Gigaton Hammer onto the Gyarados, knocking it down to 31%. We have a double freeze for the first time ever in the Victory Road League. My goodness. The Mega Frost Blast clutching up with a freeze on not only just the Lucario, but the Gyarados as well. A tough place to be for New York and what they decide to do. Frostlass coming out with a Thunderbolt, knocks down Lucario down to 10%. Lucario is going to thaw on this turn. They're going to go for a Flash Cannon onto the Frostlass at one hit KO. So knocks out the Frostlass. Tinkaton going for a play rough, but Seattle is going to knock out this Gyarados right away. Huge. Seattle going to send out its own Gyarados this time. The Whimsicott coming back out, so its biggest foe, probably in that Frostlass, is gone, but you still have a Steel type on the field with Tinkaton here. Now the attack dropped by 1 for both this Lucario and this Whimsicott. What does New York decide to do here? Whimsicott going for a fake Tears onto the Tinkaton. Lucario going for an Aura Sphere onto the Tinkaton. It's gonna hold on to 1 due to that Focus Sash. So it'll live a turn. Gyarados going for a Waterfall onto the Lucario. Seattle is going to pick up another point here. And the Gigaton Hammer coming for the Whimsicott knocks it out. Folks, Seattle 1 Pokemon away from taking this to a 3-game set. And the Garchomp is going to come out for New York. Seattle, of course, coming into this matchup, not favored to win. But if they can kick it to a 3-game set, Garchomp going for the Rock Slide. The Gyarados is going to avoid the attack. It will hit this Tinkaton, so another point for New York here. But due to that Garchomp avoiding this, the Gyarados, excuse me, going for the Ice Fang. It's super effective. Of course, that Rough Skin will kick in. The Citrus Berry will give the Garchomp just a little bit of health, but now it'll have 2 Pokemon to deal with at the same time, and they're going to send out, Seattle is going to send out its own Lucario. What a 2nd game match here in our best of 3 between Seattle and New York. My goodness. Garchomp going for a Rock Slide. The Lucario will not get hit with it. It's going to hit the Gyarados, but not enough to knock it out. 15% of its health still remains. It was a critical hit here. Lucario going for the Aura Sphere, knocking Garchomp down to 15%, and the Gyarados going for it. We are going to a 3-game set here between the Seattle Marills and the New York Krooks. Welcome back into our Week 5 matchup between the Seattle Marills and the New York Krooks, becoming an absolute all-timer. New York deciding to run that Perish Song team that they've been known to run most of this season. Seattle deciding to bring back in the team that won them that last match. A bold choice, knowing that this Perish Song team is here. But if they can navigate it correctly, they have a chance. So we are here to settle all the odds. Chat is going crazy for Seattle here, live on Twitch. The Double Freeze has the Perish Song coming out for revenge, is what chat is saying. My goodness. Can Seattle pull off the win is the question here. Pull off the upset. New York trying to hold on to its undefeated streak to start this season. Tinkaton, Frostlass back out for Seattle. Of course, that Gengar Incineroar duo, the Intimidate is going to come out. Won't hit that Tinkaton. Will hit this Frostlass. A fair warning here. Get rid of the Gengar and you're set. But of course, New York trying to hit hard and fast. You want to set up that Perish Song, but can you, if this team is narrowing it down onto the Gengar is the question. Incineroar a little bit less worrisome due to knowing, as we've seen for 4 straight weeks, the Gengar bringing out Perish Song. Both trainers deciding to make their moves on what they shall decide to do. The Frostlass going to Mega Evolve right here, right away. A big choice here. The Snow Warning going to be coming out. The Gengar going to be Mega Evolving here. So we have our 2 Omegas of this match coming right away. Gengar going for a Protect instead. Frostlass is going to go for a Hex. Will not hit the Gengar due to the protection. Tinkaton going for the Gigaton Hammer and will not hit due to that Gengar. Incineroar going for a Throat Chop, knocking Frostlass down to 26% of its health. So got to be careful if you're Seattle in this situation. Of course, Protect will only have a 30% chance to land again due to the Gengar deciding to use it once. The Gengar gonna be withdrawn, and they're gonna send out Politoed, more than likely due to that Drizzle to set up the rain. Frostlass going for the Hex, assuming that it was going to be the Gengar, still get some decent damage off to the Politoed. Tinkaton going for a Play Rough on the Incineroar, drops it down to 6-7 of its percentage. The Throat Chop, though, will kick in here and knock out the Frostlass. So a point to New York here in this 3-game set. Gyarados coming out. Intimidate will affect this Incineroar and Politoed. You have the rain up to work in your favor, potentially to go against this Incineroar, depending on what New York decides to do. Of course, as soon as that Gengar gets back out on the field, if you are Seattle, you have to go for it right away. All the focus onto that Gengar. The Archaludon coming out here, so a very bold choice. Gyarados going for the Waterfall, assuming that it was going to be the Incineroar, so that Stamina will kick in, boosting its defense by 1. Tinkaton going for a Swords Dance here to boost its attack. Politoed going for a Weather Ball, which will be Water type here. Drops Tinkaton down to 51%. Archaludon coming in with a Leftovers to put itself back up to 83%. New York a little unsure what to do here. Normally they would have set up the Perish Song against anybody else, but they have not done so here. A very bold choice. Tinkaton going in for a Protect here right away. Very good decision for Seattle. Gyarados coming in with a Ice Fang. Isn't able to do much. The Stamina will boost by 1. No freeze effect here. Archaludon going for an Electro Shot will boost its special attack by 1. Of course, going to be super effective here against the Gyarados. Good enough to knock it out. And the Gyarados is going to faint. Politoed going for a Weather Ball will not hit due to that protection on the Tinkaton. Seattle down to its last 2 Pokemon here in this 3-game set. And it's going to be a Lucario. So now we know all 4 Mons of this match. 2 of them knocked out for Seattle, being the Gyarados and the Frostlass, and still alive is this Lucario Tinkaton duo. And for New York, still has its Incineroar, Gengar, Politoed, and Archaludon alive. Archaludon and Politoed down to 77 and 76% of its health. Archaludon coming in with a Protect here. Sensing an Aura Sphere like predicted. So a bold prediction to do a protection here. Tinkaton going in for a Play Rough onto the Tinkaton instead of the Politoed. Politoed coming with the Perish Song. So all Pokemon on the field. If you are Seattle at this point, you probably do not win the match unless you knock out this Politoed right away. How does Seattle decide to navigate this? Of course, one more turn of rain remains. Politoed going in for a Protect here. Lucario going for an Aura Sphere onto the Politoed, trying to do all that they can, and it will not be able to work here. Archaludon with another Electro Shot that will hit right away due to the rain being up for one more turn. And the Tinkaton is down, so another point to New York. All that remains is this Lucario. The rain is going to stop. Archaludon will restore its health. And Lucario's Perish count will drop to 2. Archaludon going to be withdrawn. Gengar coming back out. Lucario going for an Aura Sphere. It isn't going to hit the Gengar due to the switch. Politoed going to make Lucario use an Encore. And Lucario's Perish count is going to fall to 1 here. Unfortunate. Seattle would have brought in that second or their first team from the first match with that Whimsicott. It would have been able to possibly pull off an upset for the ages, but will be unfortunate here. But still a massive GG's to the Seattle Marills. Gengar going for a Disable. And the Lucario is going to fall to that Perish Song, unfortunately, and a undefeated streak is still alive for the New York Krooks.